Look, kid, I don't care if you beg or whore yourself out. I want 700,000 yen by tomorrow. Otherwise, we chop you up and sell the bits. Got it?
In the Promised Neverland, one thing you don't do is break the rules. And it seems like anime creators have a secret law that every protagonist must go through soul-crushing trauma before they can become the MC. On this list, every hero or villain has a story ranging from tragic backstories to abandonment and overwhelming trauma that shaped their personalities. So, without further ado, here are the anime characters with the saddest childhoods. Sit back, hold on to your tissues and comfort teddies, and let's cook! Starting off this list is every child in the Promised Neverland.
We've never been outside. That's because we haven't left here since being born. So is this what Mom always tells us about?
The children grew up in what seemed like a perfect orphanage, with Isabella, their mum, treating them like her own. The real tragedy? They were being raised like high-quality livestock to be fed to demons. Their whole childhood was built on lies, making their joy and innocence deeply heartbreaking as they are thrown into a brutal fight for survival. Next on this list is Denji. Denji's childhood was marked by extreme poverty, loneliness, and child labor. After his father was murdered, let's not sugarcoat it, Denji inherited a massive debt to the Yakuza, forcing him to work as a devil hunter just to survive. His living conditions? A tiny, rundown shack with no food, no love, and no hope.
How's 400,000 sound to you?
Sounds awesome!
That's before subtracting your debt payment and interest, though, which whittles it down to 170,000. Then there's the finder's fee, admin fee, management costs, and so on.
His only friend was Pochita, the adorable chainsaw devil who eventually sacrificed himself to save Denji's life. Denji never had a childhood, just survival. Up next is the Elric brothers. Edward and Alphonse grew up happy until they weren't. After their mother died of illness, they attempted to bring her back using alchemy. Bo-ho, the road was tougher than a heavyweight sumo slam. Instead of their mother, they created an abomination. Edward lost an arm and a leg, while Alphonse lost his entire body, becoming a soul trapped in armor. Their childhood was defined by pain, guilt, and a relentless journey to fix their mistake. Another character that makes it on this list is Trafalgar Law. Law's suffering started when his home, Levance, was wiped out by the world government due to amber lead poisoning. His entire family in town were exterminated, leaving him the sole survivor. He was later taken in by the Don Quixote pirates and became a child soldier, knowing he had only a few years to live due to the same poisoning. His one saving grace? Corazon, who betrayed Doflamingo to save Law's life. When Corazon was killed right in front of him, Law's childhood was completely shattered. Gyutaro and Daki were born into extreme poverty, abandoned, and treated like filth. But then again, their demonization completely altered their memories of who they were. They were often hungry and had to endure long days without proper care. Gyutaro, beaten daily by villagers, forced to eat insects just to survive. Daki, sold off at a young age, then burned alive after angering a noble. Their only comfort was each other, but even that wasn't enough to shield them from cruelty, starvation, and suffering.
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! What did I do to deserve this?
By the time they became demons, their memories were twisted beyond recognition. Their entire childhood was nothing but pain. With Itachi coming next, the entire Naruto-verse might just be traumatized. From an early age, he was forced to become the perfect shinobi, but the weight of his family's expectations and the village's demands were crushing. Itachi was often alone, and despite being loved by his family, he could never fully connect with them due to his sense of duty. He was a genius prodigy, but also a child forced to spy on his own clan. The weight of his clan's expectations and the village's demands broke him. And then, to protect the village, he was manipulated into massacring his entire family. His childhood was marked by loneliness, self-doubt, and an impossible burden. Levi's our broken child who didn't go rogue, one of them at least. He grew up in absolute poverty with his mother in the underground, a lawless, rotting city beneath the walls. Waking up to food the next morning would be a Christmas wish for them, but the pinnacle of his suffering was having to sit and watch a terminal illness take his mother's life. When she died from illness, Levi was left alone with her corpse for days until Kenny found him, trained him, then abandoned him. And just when Levi found purpose with Erwin and the Scouts, they all died. By the end of Attack on Titan, Levi is the last survivor of his comrades. Up next is Kakashi. Kakashi's childhood wasn't just sad, it was a masterclass in suffering. Mother died at childbirth. Father, once a great shinobi, he took his own life after being shunned for prioritizing his teammates over the mission. Best friend, Obito, crushed by a boulder right in front of him, but not before giving him the Sharingan. Love interest Rin, he was forced to kill her with his own hand when she jumped in front of his Jirodi. Sensei, Minato, killed in battle during the Nine Tails attack. Kakashi went from being a child prodigy to a walking ghost of his past. He buried everyone he ever cared about, one after another. His entire life was built on grief, guilt, and loneliness. It's honestly a miracle he turned out as a functioning human being, let alone one of the greatest shinobi in history. This list wouldn't be valid if Eren doesn't make it here. Eren was born in a world inside the walls that were threatened by cannibal titans. The walls that surrounded his village were meant to protect, but they also kept him trapped in a small, confined world where he longed for freedom. His trauma started when his mother was eaten alive by a titan in front of him, leaving him with a burning desire for revenge. But here's the twist. Future Eren manipulated past Eren into setting everything in motion. So yes, Eren traumatized himself. It's even more tragic when you realize that every painful moment of his life was part of an endless cycle he couldn't escape. Almost at the end of the list, and up next we've got Shigaraki. Shigaraki's childhood was a horror movie. Abusive father? Check. Neglectful family? Check. Accidentally wiped out his entire family with his decay quirk? Check. All this kid wanted was love. Instead, he got a household that despised him, a father who beat him for wanting to be a hero, and a quirk that activated at the worst possible moment. Left to suffer on the streets, he was eventually taken in by All for One, who warped him into the villain we know today. Shigaraki's childhood proves one thing: villains aren't born, they're made. Following the list is Hyakimaru. This might just be the most hurtful one based on the fact that he was stripped of human rights before existing. Bro wasn't even born before he was offered as a sacrifice to demons by his father. Born without limbs, facial features, or internal organs, Hyakimaru was abandoned by the same deadbeat dad who could not accept the deformities caused by the curse on him. His father ordered that he be left to die, but Hyakimaru survived, though he was never truly cared for. He is raised by a kind doctor who gave him prosthetics, but the absence of a real family left a deep emptiness in his heart. He grew up feeling like an outsider, searching for his lost body parts as a way to reclaim his humanity. His childhood was filled with utter loneliness. Finally, at the top of this list is Guts, the final boss of pain. His birth? He was literally born from his dead mother's hanging corpse. His upbringing witnessed his foster mother's death, sold off as a child soldier, raised by a mercenary who treated him as a tool and violated him. His entire childhood, a brutal test of survival. And the worst part? His suffering didn't end in childhood. Guts' entire existence is pain. On this note, we've come to the end of this video. Let us know in the comments which character's sad childhood should have made it here and if you agree with this list. Finally, don't forget to hit the bell icon so we see you in the next upload.